My name is Kim Taylor, and I came here some 10 years ago, originally with my auntie. And whilst I was here, I have to admit, I was not very interested in temples and tombs. And my thing was animals. I was a veterinary nurse many years ago, and I always had a horse of some description. And so when I came here, all I was looking at was the animals, the way they were treated, what people were doing to them, not doing to them. And so eventually, after coming here quite a few times, we were trying to think of a way to try and help the situation here. So what we wanted to do was to try and just teach the people some basics of healthcare for their animals. We found so many animals here had their backs, for instance, red, raw and bleeding because people were not taking the tack off, just leaving it on 24 hours a day. We found people were not washing their animals, they were not grooming their animals, they were just using them the whole time. So that meant that the animals were not having any sort of hands-on with their owners at all, except for whacking them, beating them. So we decided originally to try and make a place which is just like a washing area. And whilst we've got them here washing their animals, we could teach them about looking after the feet, looking after the teeth, the general feeding of the animal, resting the animal, how to get the best out of it. Because although lots of people here have got animals, they didn't seem to know how to look after them really at the basic level at all. Because we opened on the 22nd of July 2000, and we slowly over time, unfortunately, became veterinary, because we didn't intend to be veterinary, of course, because obviously that's a very expensive business. But people would come rushing in with an animal that's been in an accident, or an animal that's got a high fever, or whatever it may be, and you can't just wash it. We made the sandpit because we saw so many animals at night time tied up, either by their legs tied together, or tied to a lamppost, or trapped between carts so that they couldn't roll, they couldn't lay down at all, so it's like they're standing 24 hours a day. So at least when they come here, if they want to roll, they can, because everybody who has a horse or a donkey knows that they just love to roll. It's something that they just love to do. So from here they go up to the washing area. Up there we give people buckets, brushes, shampoo, and they get their animals really clean. And that's two good things happening there, and that is that they are then putting their hands on their animals in a nice way, because they're washing them. So they're having to touch them without hitting them, which is a good thing. And also they're noticing if there's any cuts or any swellings, anything like that that needs to be seen to. And so from there they can come into the barrier here where we have the vets working, and we can do what we can for them, and then they go. So these animals are here as inpatients because they have either really bad wounds, or mainly because they have a problem with their foot or their leg and they can't literally walk home and come back again until they're fixed. We have things like abscesses in hooves, puncture wounds, that kind of thing, and they can't walk on 3 legs to go home. But everything else we do here is totally free. We don't charge anything, which is a good thing because the poor people here haven't got income to pay for vets. So it's a good thing to keep it free. They never have to think, can I afford to go or not? It's a case of let's just get there. We have, in the past, when we first started, we tried to do some advertising. But we found that advertising in like magazines and things isn't very good anymore, really, because there's so many people advertising and people get bombarded with charities asking for money. So we found the best thing is if we can get people whilst they're here to come and see the place, then they're familiar with what's happening in the streets, they've seen what's happening. And then when they're here, I beg them for a standing order or something like that, so they can continue to help us, and then that's really where our support comes from. A lot of the children here leave school, they can't read and write. We have on the wall here pictures, because people can't read and write, so we put what we want them to see in picture form. And even if we tell people, you know, like for instance, people come in and they tell us, we have lots of horses coming in the summertime which are dying from dehydration because the people will not give them water during the day. They give them water in the morning and in the evening, but they have this traditional idea that it's going to die if you give it water. You know how sometimes they get that belly which boom, 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 moves when they have a lot of water? They think that's going to kill them for some reason. So it's just superstition, tradition, it's all kind of rolled into one. So there are some very strange superstitions here that you can't understand why. I mean, a lot of the poor people here rely totally on their animals. They've got like one horse or one donkey, and that animal is feeding their whole family, the work that it does, and yet they don't take care of it. And you can't understand why. You see them all day beating them. You see donkeys that are trotting really hard, pulling a huge load, and they're still beating them. Why? In this area, Upper Egypt where we are, maintenance is not really something that people do. They don't maintain their buildings, they don't maintain their cars. When it breaks down, they'll fix it, but they don't do maintenance. Whether that's just something part of the culture here, I don't know. We've seen a huge difference in the carriage drivers and the difference in their horses. People have come in and said, I can't believe the difference in the carriage horses, especially because that's something people notice because it's working with the tourists. We've had tour leaders come that have been working here in Egypt. They've gone away to Morocco or something for a few years and come back, and they've come to look for me because they've seen the huge difference in the horses. So thank goodness, otherwise I'd kill myself, really. Being here doing this all the time and then you don't see any good results, because we do see really, really good results. Once they start. You see, the thing about donkeys is they make so much noise when they're calling to each other, which is like the sexual calling. But if you beat them, they don't make a sound, not a sound. And that's really a bad thing, because then people don't think that they're hurting them, or maybe they're not thinking about it at all, but whatever. If they made a sound when you heard them, same as children do or we do, then maybe that would help the donkeys. Here they'll just truss a donkey or a horse up, half a dozen people will sit on top of it, and they screw red hot pokers into its legs to burn its legs, and they don't make a sound. Little snuffling noise, but that's it. They can't cry out in pain. So I wish they would. I wish they could. The first 2 years I was here, I probably cried every day because I was so depressed at the way people were treating something so precious. To me, it seemed so precious to them. And you know, even if you're not emotional like we are, not like pets, we overindulge our pets probably. But even here, you can't understand why someone would abuse something that they're making money from. And I couldn't get my head around that at all, and I was so upset about it. But I've learned to kind of get my head around that now. So still, sometimes you see things and you just can't believe it. I especially get really tearful when I see the burning on the legs, because all I can think of is the pain that the animal's gone through, and I can't stand things suffering. So that really upsets me still. But most of the time otherwise I don't cry. I'm very strong now. We've had 2 traffic accidents this week, something with 2 legs broken. The donkey was smashed in the back end, so his back was broken. Also here we had the carriage horses sometimes have the baby horse next to the mother. The drivers in the cars and trucks realise there's a horse there, but they don't think there may be a baby skipping out the side. And so they'll cut round and then hit the baby. Traffic accidents really the worst things. And sometimes things that have happened and the owner doesn't come straight away. Now they wait until something's really badly infected and the animal's almost dead, and then they'll bring it in and expect us to fix it, and it's too late. Some of the other things which really upset me is when, for instance, an animal comes in that needs to be euthanized, but the owner doesn't agree. And so we've had cases where the owner is beating the animal to get it out of here because it can't walk, its leg's broken or infected, whatever it might be. And because we've tried to convince him that it needs to be put down, he doesn't agree and he takes it away. And I get really, really upset about that, because I know how much pain it's in and how much pain it's going to go through until it actually dies. A lot of people don't want you to kill their animal. That's why when we do put them down or euthanize them, we make a contract with them and we have to get them to sign it. We have to give them some money to make the contract 100% legal. And then we can put them down because it's our property. Then the owner doesn't care about it because he's sold it.